Oh my God, we are finally here. Welcome to the first ever episode of Fuck the Mold podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Lynn. This episode is mainly going to be me describing my experiences with social structures, with other people, with the expectations that are set upon me and others who might experience this. So I wanted to really make this first episode of not only how I got to creating this podcast in general, but the experiences that have shaped me thus far in life to make me who I am, because I want you guys to know your host. And so, buckle in, we are going into all of my childhood traumas. So, you're welcome, pretty much. First, we have to start from the very beginning because everything starts with childhood trauma. I grew up in a heavily conservative household, most of these conservative views being derived from religious beliefs. Because of that, there is certain expectations of how a woman is supposed to act. I'm a woman, I do go by she, her pronouns. So there is certain expectations with that on that I am expected to marry a man. I am expected to dress a certain way, to talk a certain way. And growing up, there's a certain expectation of respect for your elders. It was also a very authoritarian household. So I didn't really have much of a voice in my household until I had the own monetary value to be able to provide for myself. Those things went hand in hand. So that was a bit of my upbringing. Although I had a very loving household, there was something that I learned early on about questioning the world around me, and that was due to my sexuality. I'm bisexual, and I knew that probably at 12 or 13, I probably was pretty certain of what was going on. Knowing that my household opposed these views was very difficult for me because I was taught to believe that these people were bad people and that was wrong. It was this internal battle of right and wrong. What I had to learn and shape myself with was, okay, do I believe the people in my household that this is wrong, this is a sin, this is not something that you should partake in? And that means that I'm a bad person by nature because of the urges that I had at that young age, or potentially are they wrong? At an early age, I really learned to question what was being taught to me, what was being sold to me. I had to unpack it as soon as I heard it. I had to really understand if it was right and wrong, and I had to rely on my own moral compass. And that was thankfully because I had a really strong sense of self, which ironically I believe was instilled by me by the same people. My strong sense of self, I knew I wasn't a bad person. And so these things of being queer and that being right or wrong, it must not have been true about me. I must still be a good person regardless of whom I choose to love. And so this really began this early questioning for me of what is right and wrong, and being sure to analyze information that is coming to you. And that became a really important step of my upbringing, and being so analytical and quizzical of every piece of information that came across me in life. With the household that I grew up in, it was also very blue collar. So it was a script, and it was a script that many people have been sold within life. It is this script of you go to school, you go to more school, you get educated, you go get a job, you work for somebody else, you climb the ladder, and you make a living that way. And you add house and kids into that script, and that is the American dream. This is something that I was heavily sold. Again, as you could guess, I questioned this. Another reason is I've never wanted kids. And so this again made me question this script, and it further amplified how much I should be and benefit from questioning the world around me, and how I needed that because my identity seemed to be so different than this script that everyone was selling me in my life. I also was very entrepreneurial from a young age, and I will say that my parents were, I wouldn't say that they're non-believers in entrepreneurs. They're just a bit more skeptical. They are taught, again, blue collars, so they are taught to value that security and that sustainable income, that regular paycheck that you get. And I just never, I don't know if I'm delusional or crazy, but I just didn't see the value in that security, I guess. This is also a point that I should say because of my upbringing, I was taught to think that the world was my oyster and whatever I decided to create is what my life would be. So, another portion of this is that I believed that as long as I worked hard, things would work out for me. And so, because I was given that mindset, I was kind of taught and raised like that, the world really was my oyster. So when we talked about entrepreneurship, I was like, of course I could do all of this. Again, not sure if it's delusion, but I just had that strong sense of self and I felt that I was meant for more. I felt that I was ready to conquer anything. And as long as I worked hard and I knew I had a good work ethic, as long as I worked hard, I could get there. And so there was always this dying desire to do that. I learned along the way how hard entrepreneurship was, but that was kind of where we formulated on the entrepreneurial side of things. And I had this strong urge to go in that direction. And again, question that working for someone else part of the script. Another piece of my background is I'm an athlete. I'm a college athlete. I played volleyball in college. So there's another portion of this equation that is I'm not a quitter. I understand the value of sweat equity. I understand that you are not going to be great when you start something new. And especially for my journey as an athlete, I was an athlete who I was told going into college, getting recruited, my college coach said, I need a starting outside hitter, and that is not you. And I said, okay, queen. Okay, queen. Yep. And I committed to that school anyway because I believed in that program in that school. And I was still very novice at volleyball. I started at a late age, so I knew I had to work harder than everyone else given I didn't have the time. I didn't have the reps behind me. So I learned that skill at an early age. So that made me understand sweat equity and I didn't quit at anything. I toughed everything out. I knew that you needed to kind of suffer to get a sort of result that you desired that was worth something. Anything worth anything was inclusive of some type of suffering. I think that that is definitely something I had to unpack in later years as well, that not everything is worth suffering for. And being able to determine what is worth suffering for was a huge part in my journey. Athlete and college experience, being a college athlete, that was worth suffering for. Suffering being in corporate America and working towards someone else's dream in the one life that I get, not worth suffering for. And it took me a really long time to learn that because I was raised in this environment that I had control over my environment. I had so much in my control to be able to make my own future. This made me very hyper independent. I became not inclusive with anyone else in my life of being able to help me. And that has been something I've had to work through as well, that it is okay to lean on other people and that I'm only one person and it is not going to all get done if I don't let people in and allow others to be able to assist me in life. So that's also something that I've had to work through, especially being a college athlete and kind of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and really riding on your own grit. That was a portion that really needed to be unpacked as well to make me more collaborative as an adult. So, when did I start saying, fuck the mold? Obviously, a couple of these anecdotes are that I started doing it pretty early on, but there was nothing groundbreaking. And also, I didn't come out into my parents until I was 28 years old. So that was 2 years ago. So even though I knew that I was different than my family, I did not do anything about that. I didn't really put a middle finger to the world until later in life. So when did that catalyst first start? For me, I was in school, I was in grad school, I was getting a really good education, and other people around me in my program were very excited about the work we were doing and the education we were getting. And even though could see that it was a good education, I was learning a lot, I wasn't passionate about it. And when I thought, what was I always passionate about? I thought back to clothes. I've always been someone who is interested in fashion and that version of expression. And I was like, I want to open my own boutique. And it was really this first step of choosing me over the mold, pretty much. That was that first step of saying, fuck this mold. I remember it so vividly. I had gotten out of one of my classes. I was at a mental health counseling program, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, this is what I've always wanted to do. I want to do this. And she was like, all right, let's do it. Not only did that show me that there were other paths, but also that people surprise you. I was surprised. If I'm going to be honest, I was surprised that my mom was supportive. I was surprised that my family of non entrepreneurs could see how passionate I was and support it. And not because they weren't supportive people, it was just that that wasn't the lifestyle we were sold. That's not what we grew up on. And so that moment is still so ingrained in my brain. This is something, you need to keep following this path because it felt riveting. So I always remember that moment with my mom, and I'm always very appreciative of that. So I ended up going to a different grad school. I ended up getting a master's in business to be able to pursue my business. Yes, I did start the online boutique, but we are not going into that. I ended up working in corporate for a little bit while my business was running. I did not enjoy any of my time in corporate other than the fact that I was learning business skills. What I did love was learning, and I loved tinkering with business and kind of the development of business and problem solving. So I bounced around jobs. That's how you climb the ladder. And that was part of the script. So I was bouncing around jobs. I was constantly getting raises. I was constantly getting promotions at the jobs that I did keep. And that led me to making six figures in corporate America I think I got into six figures at 27. And this is a dream for a lot of people. And that is a milestone that I think I was sold when I was younger of that success. That's when you know you made it. And I did all the things. I bought a house at 27. I think I was making six figures at 27. I was living the dream, but I wasn't nearly as happy as everyone says that you should be when you reach these metrics. Then what did I have to do? I had to unpack it again. I had to rewrite the script. I had to study the script. I had to say, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And that led me to an answer of no, I'm not meant to be working for somebody else. And all I could think of is that all I wanted to do was help people, and I wanted to build a business, a successful one. So I landed on naturally being delusional and quitting my job. I started a business that is a culture coaching consulting firm for businesses to be able to have businesses add more value to their employees. I knew how much I hated corporate America, and I wanted to add value to those people. That was one of I think it was my third big step of really saying, fuck the script, fuck the mold, I'm betting on myself. All of these steps of really challenging what that script was has led me to so much happiness. I can't even put it into words. It has led me to so much self-understanding, and it has led me to so many more genuine and beautiful connections of people seeing me for who I truly am, and me seeing myself and accepting myself regardless of what society says or expects from me. Quitting made me heavily challenge, what does it look like to make a successful living? And in corporate, they do not share their monetary successes with you. There is few and far between companies who do profit sharing. So I wanted to be in charge of that, going back to that mentality that I am in control of my own environment, and I needed to see that through. I had made it to the top in theory based on the script, and I showed myself that I put my mind to it and I was successful in everyone else's definition of success, but not mine. And so now we are chasing my dream and my version of success. This is kind of, my journey of that is creating conversations like this in this podcast that I'm able to connect with people, help people, understand people, and give viewers and more audiences a bigger and better understanding of the possibilities that are out there. I know I didn't have representation as much when I was a child. It just in my hometown, it just wasn't there. So that is kind of where we came about to this podcast. I also, big reason I created this podcast is I'm not a surface level girly. I love deep conversations. I love meaningful conversations. And I want to have conversations with people about their upbringing, their childhood traumas. And I want to have it in a safe space. I want to have a true and honest conversation about these things so that some of these experiences are represented in our media today. And that is why we do the podcast. So that is kind of the brief overview of my story, my journey, my life. And I'm just so excited for the pursuit of knowledge and people that this show is going to bring. So I love you guys so much. Thank you so much to anyone listening to this first episode. It means so much to me to be able to connect with even, the few of you who are subscribed to me. I just, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you so, so, so much. And please look out for next week's episode. This podcast is going to be very interview style, and this first episode should be the only one that just has me. So get ready to unpack so many different society structures, and let's go on this journey together. Love you guys.